The newest 200-meter Olympic world champion is Letsile Tebogo, was able to upset Noah Lyles, Bednarek, Erriyon Knighton on his way to winning the first gold medal for his country, Botswana. And today we're going to be going over the breakdown, what he was able to accomplish. We'll also talk about Noah Lyles, who ended up getting COVID. There was kind of some speculation going into it if he was a little bit ill in the semifinal as well as going to the final. And afterwards, they disclosed that he did test positive for COVID. But I don't end up thinking that that ended up being a big part of why what happened ended up happening. And we'll go ahead and hop right into it so we can see Noah Lyles here. We have Erriyon Knighton, Letsile Tebogo, and then Bednarek. And when we look at this start, and this is something that I've noticed through the heats as well as through the semifinals, that Erriyon Knighton has kind of struggled with his starts. He tested positive for a PED early on in the season. Seemed like he had to deal a lot with like the legal battles and the ramifications of that. He ended up being cleared, but it seems like he wasn't able to do as much this season. He wasn't able to compete as much. Just seemed to have take a big toll on him, and therefore he didn't look good out of the starts in any of the heats or semifinals. We could see Noah Lyles did a really good job out of the blocks and was doing a great job driving. And I think he caught Erriyon Knighton very early on. And in the past, Erriyon Knighton's been a very strong competitor in the 200 meter, was close within the world championships, and is just typically one of the top 200-meter runners. So I think he kind of eased up a little bit here. If we look to see from this view, I think he kind of lost a little bit of control. Like Noah Lyles, you can see he has kind of an uncharacteristic arm swing there on the right side. Just it seems to be a little bit loose, just not as concise of a movement as what we typically see with Noah Lyles. So as he's coming around the curve, I think he ends up being in a little bit worse position than he thought. I think as he was going in here, he thought he was in a very good spot because he's way out in front of Erriyon Knighton. But then as that curve ends up hitting, we could see that he's pretty far back from Letsile Tebogo and Bednarek, where typically he's about even or even a little bit in front of either one of those guys at the end of the curve. And so from here, now he's really far back. And I think he actually does a good job of starting to close some of the space and starts to catch him a little bit, but it was just too little too late when it comes to being able to beat Letsile Tebogo. He's been competitive in the 200 for a while with Noah Lyles. He's typically right there, right behind him in like the Diamond League or some of the other races that they do. And just today, we could see that Letsile Tebogo just had that better finish. And when you can go and really break it down, and it's hard to be able to really see this as well because we're talking about Olympians here. And so the level of difference is just very, very small. Letsile Tebogo does a great job as his foot striking the ground of being able to get a great pull within the foot and gets just a ton of length. So I think a big part of what separates these high level sprinters is the ability to get into that front side and create this kind of negative action in the ground or this pulling of the foot back down underneath. So we can see in this position, like he's pulling that leg back. He's out in front further with the foot, and then as he's striking the ground, that foot is going backwards. It's not going straight down. It's going this way to help propel him forward. And that's what really stands out when you see these guys in person, is they're covering so much distance per step that is very unique when it comes to being the fastest athletes in the world, or amongst the fastest athletes in the world. And in order to do that, it's not about what you're doing when you're pushing off the ground or what the foot's doing as it's leaving the ground. I think you do want to be able to have a good push, but you don't want to be like bounding so much that you end up throwing off your leg cycle. It's a lot about being able to control foot strike. You want to be effective in how your foot's coming off the ground and how you're cycling the leg. You can see he does a really good job of being able to get plenty of length in that posterior part of his leg, and then does a great job of generating a lot of flexion in the knee very quickly. All these guys do this at a very high level, and then from there gets a lot of range on the front side, so he can really get the knee up, can really extend out to then make it so generating the most amount of force into the ground as possible. Again, this is what is most important, is how can you more effectively generate force into the ground at foot strike. We can see he's doing a good job of coordinating with the arms, with the legs, to make it so everything is pulling back in like the left arm and within the right foot to make it so then he's striking with the ground with as much force as possible and as straight as possible, and then be able to be very quick getting that heel up and be able to push right back off. That's really the secret sauce when it comes to running. It's not really a huge secret. You have to do that within the first 10, 12 steps. And this isn't something that you could just do at the end of a 200 or in the last 100 meters of a 200. This is something that you want to be building from your first few steps, and then you can continue to have more and more success when it comes to your ability to generate more force in the ground and therefore have a higher degree of top speed. I do want to real quickly go through with Joseph Fahnbulleh and his start, just because I think he has so much potential in the 200. And I also think that there's a lot to learn from with some of the things he's doing with his start. So the first action as he gets out of the blocks, he just gets way too high with the hand. See how Kenny Bednarek, how his hand is really tight to his body, where we could see that Joseph Fahnbulleh, again, so far back here that that's just taking a lot more time with that foot to leave the ground. So now that right leg is going to end up spending a lot more time on the ground because of how far back that shoulder gets before toe off. So you got to be quick with the action of the backside of your hands when you're getting out of the blocks, when you're going through the start. You don't want to get stuck with that hand too far back behind you. I also think he pops up pretty early. We see that with Erriyon Knighton as well. We can see the difference between Erriyon Knighton and Noah Lyles here. You can see Noah Lyles very quick, very outwards with the motion, where Erriyon Knighton's much more upwards there and therefore just doesn't cover as much ground. He's getting way too vertical, way too early on, which makes it so in just 10 to 12 steps, Noah Lyles was able to make up a good amount of distance within the stagger, and then he just continued to accelerate well. Once you get into a good accelerated position, now you just want to be able to continue that all the way through the curve. Again, Erriyon Knighton just didn't get into a great spot and then was really in an uphill battle from there, and Noah Lyles was able to catch him very easily and pass him very easily. I mean, he still ended up running a pretty solid race, Erriyon Knighton, and so did Noah Lyles, but just not good enough to be able to win gold. Again, a lot of credit I think goes to Letsile Tebogo as well as Kenny Bednarek. I think that they both did a great job of executing their race, as much as Noah Lyles could have probably been in a more healthy position and was a little bit behind the eight ball when it comes to his overall performance. I still think we have to give a lot of credit to Letsile Tebogo and Kenny Bednarek. I mean, Letsile Tebogo still ran a 19.4, so that's very, very fast. That's a very high level performance in something where Noah Lyles would have had to run a great race in order for him to be able to actually win this. And so just wasn't his day, I guess, on this particular 200 meter. I was hoping that he would win the 100 and the 200 meter gold. I was really hoping that he would be able to win the 100, the 200, and the 4x1, but it looks like he maybe or probably is not going to be able to compete in the 4x1. But it was still an awesome race. Huge congratulations to Letsile Tebogo, somebody we've been following all season, and somebody who I even thought would be able to do much better in the 100. And I definitely thought he could do really well within the 200, and he did. So again, huge congrats. Only 21 years old. He's going to get a lot better. There's a lot more that he has in the tank, and you could tell he's very motivated to be able to be one of the top competitors for Noah Lyles and against everybody that's in track and field. So as always, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. We'll have a couple other videos that you can watch as well, breakdowns that you can watch as well, the women's 200 meter as well as the men's 100 meter. If you want to check out another breakdown just like this, go and click those down below. And thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.